Most history books end the story of World War II with cheering crowds in Times Square or London, painting a picture of immediate relief and abundance. But for millions of civilians across Europe and Asia, the end of combat was just the beginning of a different, colder war. Governments on both sides had to bury the extent of the post-war crisis to prevent mass panic, classifying survival recipes and substitution lists as state secrets because, honestly, admitting the cupboards were bare would have collapsed morale entirely. Before we dig into these classified archives to recover the desperate, brilliant, and sometimes, horrifying survival hacks that kept a generation alive, make sure you click that subscribe button below to join our growing community of serious historians here at Atten Recounts. We are dedicated to uncovering the forgotten technology and tactics of the past, and you won't want to miss the lost history we are revealing next. Did you know that in 1945, the official ration for a German civilian dropped to under 1,000 calories a day, leading to the creation of bread recipes that contained literal sawdust? These weren't just temporary inconveniences, they were life-or-death struggles that required ingenuity we have largely forgotten. Today, we are unlocking these forgotten files to find the actionable knowledge that kept people alive when money was worthless and shelves were empty. One of the most tightly guarded secrets of the war's end was just how little food was actually in the food. While the British government promoted the national loaf, which was a grey, calcium-fortified wheat mix that was chewy but nutritious, Axis civilians faced a much darker reality that governments tried to scrub from the records to avoid admitting total agricultural collapse. We now have access to documents from the German Food Providing Ministry, such as the 1941 Berlin 24 recipe for Ersatzbrot, or substitute bread. This wasn't just low-quality flour, it officially called for 50% bruised rye grain, 20% sliced sugar beets, and 20% tree flour. Tree flour was simply a bureaucratic euphemism for sawdust. Governments suppressed the health effects of these fillers, which caused massive digestive issues and malnutrition, because the alternative was admitting they had no grain left. For the modern survivalist, the lesson here is critical because in a true supply chain collapse, food becomes whatever provides bulk to stop the hunger pangs. You can apply this knowledge today by learning which non-toxic bulking agents like ground acorns, leached of their tannins, or dried cattail roots can stretch a flour supply. If you ever have to bake your own survival bread, remember that volume often matters as much as nutrition when you need to ration morale among a hungry group. When the coal shipment stopped in the winter of 1944 and 45, staying warm became an engineering challenge rather than a simple utility, and millions faced freezing to death in bombed-out cities. Governments in occupied Europe buried the reality that their infrastructure had failed, leaving civilians to invent heating methods that are incredibly useful for modern off-grid living. One of the most effective forgotten techniques was the production of paper logs, or newspaper briquettes, a method born of pure necessity. Civilians would take old propaganda newspapers, soak them in water until they turned into a mushy pulp, and then tightly roll or compress them into brick shapes. Once dried, these paper bricks became dense, slow-burning fuel logs that could burn almost as hot as wood. This wasn't just throwing paper in a fire, which burns away in seconds. The physics of compressing the wet fibres created a dense carbon mass that could hold a flame for a significant amount of time. You can try this today by soaking your junk mail or cardboard waste in a bucket of water until it disintegrates, compressing the pulp in a simple homemade press, or a perforated tin can to squeeze out the moisture and letting it dry in the sun. This turns waste paper into a viable fuel source for a wood stove, a skill that saved thousands from freezing when the government coal depots stood empty. The disappearance of soap was one of the most dangerous yet least discussed crises of the post-war period because it led to the rapid spread of typhus and lice in the ruins of major cities. While governments stockpiled medical supplies for the military, civilians were left to rediscover medieval chemistry to produce basic hygiene products to stop the spread of disease. The buried secret here is the sheer desperation of the ingredients used when industrial chemical plants were bombed out of existence. We know now that in many occupied zones, civilians returned to making lye soap using hardwood ash and animal fats. But when animal fats disappeared, they used much more disturbing sources or synthetic industrial sludge that flayed the skin. A practical, less gruesome application for the modern enthusiast is learning the ash method of cleaning. Sifted wood ash from a hardwood fire contains potassium carbonate. When mixed with a little water to form a paste, it creates a mild abrasive and alkaline cleaner that can scrub grease off pans or clean skin in an emergency. Mastering the production of lye water by leaching water through a barrel of hardwood ash is a foundational survival skill that separates the prepared from the helpless, allowing you to maintain sanitation when store-bought chemicals are gone. Perhaps the biggest secret governments tried to bury was that their official currencies had become effectively worthless compared to the cigarette standard. After the war, the official economy in places like Germany and Japan collapsed, and the real government became the black market where the official price controls were ignored. Serious historians know that the most valuable survival asset wasn't gold or jewellery, which lost value when people were starving, but consumables that could be traded in small units. Cigarettes, nylon stockings, and even bars of chocolate became the new currency because they were divisible and in high demand. The government hated this shadow economy because they couldn't tax it, but it was the only thing keeping people alive. For us today, the takeaway is to rethink what constitutes wealth in a disaster scenario. A stockpile of small, high-demand items like disposable lighters, mini bottles of alcohol, or sealed medical supplies is infinitely more tradable than a single high-value item like a gold bar. The civilians who survived the best were those who understood they were now merchants in a barter economy, capable of trading a pack of cigarettes for a week's worth of potatoes. These survival secrets were born out of the darkest moments of the 20th century, suppressed by governments that didn't want to admit their failure to provide for their citizens. But for us, they serve as a testament to human resilience and a manual for extreme self-reliance. Whether it is understanding how to stretch food supplies with forage fillers, creating fuel from waste paper, or recognizing the true value of tradable goods, the lessons of World War II civilians are timeless. If you found this deep dive into history's buried survival files valuable, please share this guide with a friend who appreciates serious history. And don't forget to subscribe to Atten Recounts for more investigations into the forgotten technology and tactics of the past.